over the last 3 weeks. He wasn't the only one, though. D and Olivier Vernon also opted out, but head coach Ben McAdoo expects they'll both be in attendance at next week's mandatory minicamp, as both sides have previously stated that they would be. We're back now with NFL insider Dan Graziano. And Dan, I know you're pretty familiar with OBJ and the Giants and your time covering them. What do we need to know about this situation from Beckham's perspective?
El, the most important thing to know about this, Odell Beckham has not skipped anything that he was required to attend. You mentioned Olivier Vernon. The guy, Trent Williams, who was sitting next to Odell at the basketball game last night, was skipping OTAs in Washington, so he's hardly the only one. Yet here we are talking about him on SportsCenter. Why? He's a big star. He's a lightning rod. I get it. From Odell Beckham's standpoint, his contract, if this is the issue, as Adam Schefter had reported earlier in the week that it was, and as we've heard rumblings for the last couple of weeks, his contract's paying him a little over $1.8 million this year. That makes him the 63rd highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Clearly, he is better than that. He is at least a top 62 wide receiver. I think we can all agree on that. His fifth-year option for 2018 pays him about $8.5 million. So Odell Beckham sees that he's underpaid and that he's a long way away from getting a long-term contract, the likes of which the top receivers get. So that's an issue, and maybe he decides to stay away from a minicamp day or a training camp day and make a statement about that. That's a maybe. We don't know. May not happen. Might be much ado about nothing. So we'll see if this contract is really an issue in Odell Beckham's mind that leads him to stay away from required events in the offseason.
And we get this. We see this all the time, holdouts and whatnot, for a player trying to force, the team's hand. But as you said, technically the Giants really have control over him for the next 3 to 4 years if they want to. So what are you hearing about when they're going to start to really dig deeper and look at this contract situation?
Right. Have him very cheap this year, as we mentioned. Have him at a very reasonable price next year on the option. Can certainly franchise him in 2019. They've done that with players recently, most notably Jason Pierre-Paul twice. So they're not afraid to use that to keep their top players off the market. This is a player who's been exceptional for 3 years. He was drafted 12th overall, and you go back and you figure they kind of got a steal at the 12th pick because he's been that great. So on performance, there's no doubt he's one of the top receivers in the league and should be paid as such. But if you're the Giants, there's no reason to move now because you have 3 years worth of control of him. And if you commit to him now and he gets hurt, or if the off-field stuff that, punching walls and getting into it with kicking nets and hollering at officials and other players, if that starts to escalate and become a problem for him, which so far it hasn't been, but if it does, now somebody who volatile. So I think if you're the Giants, you're holding off to see how the next year or so goes with Odell Beckham. You're hoping the production stays the way it has been and that the emotional stuff mellows out a little bit. And then you have no problem whatsoever committing to him long term. But there's no reason for the Giants to move right now.
Yeah, we mentioned it time and time again. At this point, Odell Beckham Jr. is making more endorsement money than he is in salary, which just seems crazy, but they do it the way that they do it. Dan Graziano with the latest on what's facing OBJ and the rest of the Giants.